Good morning. This is Sunrise. I'm Ayo Makini and I say welcome to the show. Hope you had a good week. Everything, that is happening in the country will definitely, is actually something significant enough to give one concern, but there isn't any reason for you to be concerned because there's always, something to be thankful and to be grateful to God for. And most certainly that is the kind of thing that we're looking forward to this morning. Well, all of the issues that are bedeviling the whole nation are right there. But, one stood out for me in the course of within the past 1 or 2 weeks when the governor of Ekiti State and chairman of the Governors Forum said unemployment is one of the things fueling insecurity in the country. That resonated a lot with me because, as I have said a few times, if you do a simple Google search of causes of insecurity in Nigeria, just check it up on your phone. One of the top 5 that you will find, in some cases, the number 1 is unemployment. And of course, you will still find poverty as an issue. So the question that came to my mind then is, what are we going to do about it? I want to believe also that that fact is not lost on the entire country because, as we all very well know, Governor Fayemi is also a member of the National Economic Council. Consequently, I expect that would also have been mentioned. Now, if you look at some of the programs that government has, they're big on employment and the rest of them. The key question I'm asking is, so what is wrong with implementing these programs in a way that we don't have to go the way we are going? And then that's on the one hand. On the other hand is creating the employment. What do we need to do about that? The question that comes to my mind about that is, okay, so we know that government, whether federal, state, or local, cannot create enough employment for more than 100 million people in the country that the president said 2 years ago that we need to pull out of poverty. So we need to galvanize the private sector. So what are the things that we need to do? Ensure that micro, small, and medium enterprises, which globally and even in Nigeria amount for between 60 to 80% of jobs in the country. But then if you look at the things that those businesses are going through, the kind of things that your own business is going through, for instance, as a micro business, as a small business, as a medium enterprise, and all of that, And then, what are we doing about the taxes that, in the way that they have to pay, taxes, levies, and all. I counted once and I found between about 20 or more taxes and levies that all kinds of businesses and all kinds of individuals have to pay to government. So many things like that. But that's not to say that while that is on the one hand, we are also talking about hunger. The challenges are there. So on the one hand, we are fighting insecurity because of unemployment. On the other hand, it is difficult to get back to the farms, which is about one of the biggest employers of labor in the country because of insecurity. It's a kind of vicious cycle, isn't it? So how do we wriggle out of this? I don't know. But I guess every one of us needs to play our part one way or another. What does government have to do? Oh, government has a lot on its own hands. But what do we have to do? And that's another job of work altogether. Well, in the course of the program today, a number of things are going to play. I am particularly excited about 2 of them, but one of them really, touches me. So, as we all very well know, we are dealing with insecurity on a large scale. And a good number of people have said that there's a lot more to what's going on than meets the eye. And we have heard said over and over again that, from the presidency to governors, we've heard them say that there are politicians behind all of this insecurity. Are they faceless? Can't we just round them up? What's the job of the DSS? The intelligence community in the country? If we know them, what's holding us? So maybe this is part of the things I will be thinking about or rethinking in our first topic this morning, Rethinking Security Strategies. We have about 2 or 3 gentlemen who will be joining us for that one. Now, from today, for the rest of the week, it's World Vaccination Week, World Immunization Week, if you like, whichever one, you prefer. So that one is also there, and the focus, the goal this year is vaccination brings us closer. How? We'll find out in the course of time. And tomorrow, April 25, is World Malaria Day. So we want to keep an eye on Malaria Day and Nigeria's effort over the years to bring down the severity of malaria in the country. For how long have we been having malaria elimination programs, and what do you, Nigerian, have to do to make it all go away? We'll keep our eye on that one. And then, of course, there is Earth Day. So we will also focus on Earth Day 2021. So who will be our artist of the week? Is he she? All right, you'll find out. Well, as you can see, you'll find out, of course, in the course of time today, but you can be sure it's someone that you'll want to listen to. As you can see, I'm home alone. That's what happens when you send your wife to the market, or in the kitchen, or in that other place. In the meantime, grab your cup of cocoa or cocoa, and I'll be right back. In the course of the week, we had a conversation about one insecurity issue or another, and a caller, well, a contributor on Twitter said he looked forward to a day where the newspapers, the front pages of the newspapers, will not have one issue of insecurity for a whole week. Well, that's perhaps, means that we have a lot of work to do. So the conversation on how to rejig our security continues, especially at this time when insecurity issues continue to aggravate, seem almost endless. Let's have this conversation again and see if there is anything, any area we have left untouched. Mike Ejiofor is a former DSS official. He joins us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ejiofor, as well as Oluseun Bogunja, who is a security engineer. Gentlemen, most grateful for your presence on our program today. Well, Mr. Ejiofor, let me ask you, you have been quite vocal about this issue. You have talked in the media space a lot about it. Is there anything, given that after all counsel, all analysis, all talk about all of the issues about insecurity that we are having, is there anything, is it possible that we are leaving out any conversation, anything untouched?
Life itself is dynamic, so there's no way we can exhaust all the measures, but we'll continue to talk. But the fact remains that the managers of our security, do they even watch TV, or they listen to what other analysts, not myself particularly, have been saying? Because it's very critical at this point in time. I had Governor Fayemi yesterday talking about, the call by Nigerians to change the leadership of the military, which has been effected. And we're still seeing the attacks ongoing. And it calls to question the issue of our structure. I'll continue to emphasize on this, that our structure, architectural structure is faulty, because you don't expect people operating in a different environment, not used to achieve much success. So I think that's a major problem. We need to, I'll continue to emphasize, we need to localize our security to solve the problems locally. I think that's very, very key.
But in the process of getting that done, we've also heard from the last administration of the police, from the leadership of the former IG, initiated that community policing strategy. Are you saying that that wasn't even going to break the ice at all?
Well, community policing, of course, would have broken the ice if the structures are properly placed. But by that, I mean, you see, these are people, community policing involves members of the community, members of the public, to volunteer information and assist the police in their onerous task of maintaining peace and security. These people are not paid. And you know, in Nigeria, things are difficult. They are volunteers. And when they volunteer to a certain extent, they want to look for what they will eat. Because there's hunger in the land. We must admit that. So, but what I think, in addition to community policing, the new Inspector General of Police has an onerous task to a very big one at that, you know, because I think he should start by building public confidence in the police. There is no confidence in the police. And you see, the issue of, you know, we against them shouldn't be. I think people should get involved in security, not leaving it to the police alone or to our security forces. It's very important we emphasize this because everybody is involved, everybody is affected, so we'll continue to have these issues with police. And we have said this times without number. Police is ill-equipped, underfunded, ill-trained, you know, to tackle the challenges. So we need to get more funds, not just getting funds for the police and the security forces, but again, monitoring, oversight function to see how these monies are spent. Because we've had cases where the new chief of army staff was at the National Assembly and he was asked questions. Instead of answering, he said they should go and call the former. I think there should be a teamwork in the leadership of the various security agencies. Government is about continuity. Life is about continuity. It should have, if he was carried along, I think he should have been in a position to say, yes, armament were bought, some were using, some were not using, but he was not in a position to answer that question. So it becomes a problem. So the leadership needs to carry their subordinates along in planning their operations.
That's a very serious one there, Mr. Joffo. But let me take this to Mr. Amabogunje. Well, you're a security engineer, and you most certainly have an idea of what we've been talking about for quite a while. And you have also been seeing the news, seeing all of the issues that have been rising. It would seem like for every pronouncement of government, whether at the federal level or at the state level, it would seem like the criminals just intensify their efforts just to show that they're in control. Or I don't even know how to place those words. What, in your opinion, is going on? What are we missing? Or are we just playing the ostrich?
Thank you very much, Mr. Makinde. I think that there is a fundamental problem with the mindset and our orientation in this country with regards to security. And I think it started as far back as a colonial period, where the focus of security was more in protecting the colonial powers, and the people were seen as part of those to be protected against. So the issue of protecting those in power or the regime in power, as opposed to protecting the people, has always been the mindset of our security agencies going forward. Today we talk about the difference between national security and human security, where national security is more concerned about the protection of the state. You know, they want to maintain the sovereignty and survival of the state through the use of economic power, diplomacy, intelligence gathering. Security threats to the state are what they focus on. Human security, on the other hand, is commonly understood as prioritizing the security of people, especially their safety, their welfare, and well-being, rather than that of the state. It kind of gives a primacy to human beings and their complex social and economic interactions. And you can see from how our police are more interested in protecting those in power and even their cronies. When you have a police force of about 400,000, and more than 100,000 of them are protecting individuals, leaving the balance to protect the remaining 200 million people. I think the understanding of security has to shift from protecting people in power to protecting the human beings in that country. Also, we have to understand that security is much more than what the security agencies alone do. Everything is about security. Infrastructure aids security. When you have roads that are in such poor shape, you don't have street lights, you don't have regular electricity supply, all these things impinge on security. And the point you made earlier on is very critical. The number one cause of insecurity is actually unemployment, without a doubt. The number two thing that I will talk about is the social tension in the country. And the number three is the politics of power in Nigeria. But much more important to me is that of unemployment. Because if jobs were created and people were employed, like they say, the devil finds work for idle hands. If people are not productively engaged, they're going to want to survive, and they're going to do whatever it takes to survive.
Well, that fact, Mr. Mabukunje, clearly isn't lost on government at various levels, just as you know, because we've been talking about that for a bit. But there's a lot more on this, the strategy angle, the focus, the primary focus of our security strategy right now, which you have highlighted earlier. And what can be done about it, or what has been done about it, or what is being done about it, we'll find out after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. It is one thing to have to fight insecurity. It's another thing to understand the impact on the people who have been so affected. Well, Dr. Onaihomo has since joined in the conversation. He is a security consultant. Let's have his opening comments as well. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Homo. I don't know if you want to begin by even reacting to what you have heard in this report now, especially the effect, the after effect of abduction on complete communities across the land.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for having me. And good morning to my fellow panelists, my brothers in the studio there with you. I'd just like to say, before I deal with the problem of impact, which is an outcome thing, let us look first at the architecture, your topic, rethinking security strategies. Let's look at that architecture. You see, that's where the problem is, because if we don't prevent acts of insecurity, then we are going to have to deal with the impact. So that's why I think impact is a downstream activity. So let us look at the architecture.
Now, just 1 second. Just 1 second, Dr. Homo. I get it. And there is no way we can remonstrate that aspect. As a matter of fact, there was something that Mr. Mabukunje mentioned about the focus of security. But I just wanted us to even understand the impact. Perhaps some government official listening to us right now will know that if we do not rethink these strategies, the impact is not just for now, but it's going to be for very many years to come. That's why I'm just, what is the summary, in your own opinion, of that? Then we now begin to talk about what we need to do so that those impacts are not replicated.
All right, thanks. I appreciate the redirect. Now, the point here is we have become so adept at carrying dead bodies in Nigeria that it's no longer news to us. We're so used to it That means we are used to dealing with impact, not even in an intelligent format. We're just used to going there, carrying dead bodies and saying, oh my sheo, and then moving on with our lives. So we don't even have a way of dealing with the actual, we don't have a structure. I think that's really what it is. We don't have a structure of dealing with the impact of these attacks. For example, each attack by whether it's Kankara, Kagara, you just, Mr. Simon the Emperor just talked about in that report, whether it's Jangabe, whether it's Afaka, or whether it's even the ongoing Greenfield University, you know, each one is a discrete event which leaves very deep scars on the victims. Now, the way to heal, I heard the commissioner say that, we need to look at the psychosocial effect of this on the students. Well, the real problem is not just the psychosocial effect. What went wrong? What went wrong? What was missing in the whole equation that we got to where we were? And then how can we prevent that from occurring further? It's not about shedding a lot of crocodile tears or, you know, maybe about, for example, we know that all the schools we've seen attacked recently. I'm just using schools as a case point because Emperor talked about Kagara. Now, all the schools we've seen that they are not fenced, they don't have security awareness, they were poorly defended, and so on and so forth. Now, there was a school in Kaduna where the bandits went to because there was some kind of an arrangement in place where they could call out the authorities. The bandits were not able to take anybody away. So the problem is, why is it that a school in Chikun local government, a university in Chikun local government that knows that it's in the hot zone of terrorist attacks, why is it that it was poorly defended, leading to the attack of, you know, the sitting of children from that school recently, and the 3 that we found dead yesterday? So what I'm saying is that look, you talk about deaths, you talk about rape scars, you talk about deprivation of liberty, you talk about destruction of property, destruction of lives, and so on and so forth. Those are the most obvious direct impact that you see. But down the line, you talk about people not denying students from the northern Nigeria education, because what is happening, more recent research I'm saying, is that it's depressing education. Parents are not letting their kids go to school because they don't want them to be kidnapped and create emotional turmoil for them. But having said that, Makinde, if you give me a second, I want to say that the problem here is that we are, Nigeria is so focused on a threat-based strategy of insecurity rather than a risk-based strategy. You see, when you do a threat-based strategy, you wait like we normally do, and when it happens, you now scramble security operatives there and to see what they can do, and then you make a lot of statements. Politicians are accused, parties cross-accused, make reckless statements up and down, even give our country a bad name and in the international community and all that. Now, that is our strategy. Rather than taking a long look, for example, look at what is happening in Nigeria's northeast border right now. We have a failed state syndrome about to occur. Now, we should be, our security forces should really be moving troops into that region right now, massing troops there, such that we can deter bandits and militia from Chad from entering this country. But, I mean, I don't know, I'm sure probably the military high command is thinking about it, but that is a risk-based strategy. You look at what is going to go wrong in some short time, in some short order, or even in some long order. We call it risk mapping. You know, you look at what is going to go wrong, and then you prepare for it and make contingency plans and take action so that you don't have to deal with the consequences. Now, that's what I'm saying, the impact. You don't have to deal with the impact that you're talking about here today.
Dr. Omo, what you said earlier and even what you said now points to one thing, or at least referenced something that Mr. Mabukunje mentioned earlier, which is the protectionist tendency or strategy or direction of our security apparatus at the moment. Do these things that you have said now, the threat-based as opposed to risk-based, the fact that we are more interested in protecting the state as opposed to protecting the people? Does it in any way indicate what some of these impacts that you have just enumerated?
No, my threat-based and risk-based strategies is that we are solving the wrong problems, or we are solving the unimportant problems. In terms of choice of who to protect, that is a policy issue. That is a policy that is made by police high command or the military high command, whoever is making those policies. But I'm saying as an aggregation, entire security infrastructure, how do we think about it? And that's why I gave you the example of Chad, that look at that one is imploding there. It's our problem. And beyond even the security, what is our diplomatic trust there? Nigeria, for goodness sake, is a regional power, whether we accept our destiny or not. We're a regional power. We should act like one. Something is happening at our doorstep, and in short order, it's going to affect us. But we stay aloof. We don't want to do anything. And then when it boils over, when the people start coming into Borno State, and coming into Adamawa State, and then maybe people coming into Enugu State, we now say, there's a problem in Nigeria. That is a threat-based strategy. You wait for it to blow up in your face, then you go and carry dead bodies. But if you anticipate that this could happen, we have 3 A's, anticipation, awareness, then action. You know, if you anticipate it, because you are aware, you spread the information, and then you take action. You know, you stay ahead of the problem. That is what security is about. Security is not about carrying dead bodies. That is for disaster management people. That's for NSCDC and maybe the other agency, the other one that does disaster management. Security is about preventing it from happening in the first place. That's what I'm saying, sir.
Mr. Jeffo, you are a former DSS official. Can you speak to some of the issues that Dr. Hobo and Mr. Mabogunje have raised about the fact that on the one hand, we seem to react as opposed to prevent, some of these things happening? He talked about threat-based strategy as opposed to risk-based strategy. Is that what we do?
You see, the problem is that in intelligence, for instance, intelligence gathering, you have 4 stages. You have the direction, which is very critical. So what are the managers of these security agencies doing? We continue to emphasize on the police, because police is the statutory body charged with maintenance of internal security. If the police fails, then we're all in trouble. Look at, like Magobi just said, we have about 400,000. I'm not sure they're up to now because people are retiring. And out of this 400,000, you have more than 120,000 deployed to individuals and VIPs. It becomes a problem. I think I once said it on this place. Some politicians started calling me whether I want them killed because I called for withdrawal of police. I don't move out with anybody. I move out because they move out with, you see, it's about attitude. We need to have attitudinal change. If you live right with God and with your fellow human beings, you don't need all this retinue of policemen. So, like Shehu said, it's better to protect the state than to protect individuals. So to some extent, I agree with them that we are not setting our priorities right. The issue is, like the new IG, any new IG that comes, we'll give this order, withdraw all the details, withdraw all the next 1 month, they're all back to their posts. So where do you have, we're saying that we don't have sufficient policemen to man the country because of the security challenges we're facing. And yet, they are deployed to individuals. And you see some of them carrying bags, for women as if they're housemates. So that's the point I'm making, that the IG needs to change the image, most importantly, and build confidence of the people for them to at least come to the police and say, we have information to give. Because I also continue to emphasize that security should not be left for security agencies alone. Everybody is involved. If you are not safe in your family or your house, there's no way you can carry out with your business. So the police also needs to re-strategize.
Yes, just one moment,
we continue to encourage them.
On that which is said about the people playing their role, you are not unaware in the same country not too long ago, and perhaps still happening, where some communities have said that they gave information to the police, but the bandits came and attacked them simply because they gave information to security officers. So if people do not have enough confidence in the fact that the security apparatus will protect them, how will they give information to the security officials in a way that will jeopardize them?
No, that's the point. You know, in some areas, like the threats are segmented. If you look at the northeast or the northwest, where you have kidnapping, where bandits reign supreme and freely, yes, the communities will be afraid to give information because you have insufficient manpower in the first place to protect that environment. So if you give information and some of them too, some of the people who volunteer this information make it as a point of pride. We have given information, these people are coming to there, and they take revenge on the people. So it's a problem. But I believe that if you want to give information to the police, they have dedicated lines. With the social media, it's easier to reach the police without even coming there physically. So I think we need to redirect, and the direction should come from the police. They should take the initiative to redirect the people and build their confidence.
Now, you also talked about what's something Mr. Mabogunje mentioned the other time, which is the fact that security is focused at protecting the state as opposed to protecting the people. But don't also forget, I think it was in 2019 that the National Security Advisor released that new national security policy, which says that it will now be more people-centric as opposed to state-centric. Do you think we've been able to do anything about that?
We've not been able. Those are paperwork. Nothing has changed. And that strategy looks very good on paper, but nothing has changed. We are still going, okay, where are the policemen to work? The last IG, immediate past IG, I remember I commended him in this studio for withdrawing, but within 1 month, they are all back. So we need to be serious in this country. Take the security of the people, because the primary purpose of government is security and welfare of the people. If government cannot do that, that government is not supposed to be called a government. And we need to reprioritize our strategies. Like you're talking, rethinking the security strategies. Let us protect the people more than protecting government officials. Regime protection, if you like.
Well, Mr. Mabungje, you mentioned that this is what we have focused on until now, and we need to rethink it. In rethinking, what are the things that are necessary? You raised the issue the other time about the number of policemen that are assigned to, well, some people have banded figures less than 400,000, and you have said about something in the region of 30-35% of that number is reserved for VIPs all over the country. But don't also forget that in the balance, we have those who are almost always in the office, the admin staff, the drivers, and, security for the various posts, the national headquarters of the police and the rest of them. So in rethinking our strategy, what really should we focus on? And not just the policy now, and the things that we need to do to effect those policies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Makinde. When we talk security, strategy in general, we have to first of all understand what are the threats. We identify the threats. What is required to mitigate these threats in manpower, in resources, in capability, in understanding, in intelligence. The focus will then be on how to provide, because everybody keeps attacking the police, and I think the police too need some protection. How much are the police being paid? How are they motivated? What is their welfare condition? How are they able to provide security when they themselves are threatened? It has to be a very holistic. What are the resources that support them? What is the database that they can plug into? What is the forensic aspects that they can use to detect and analyze and make predictions on crime? The strategy has to be all-encompassing, because everybody has a role to play in security. Like I said earlier, every ministry, if they're doing their work well, they will reduce the security challenges of the country. If the roads in Nigeria are good, well lit at night, you will reduce security. If there's ample water supply for all the citizens, the need to look for water all over the place will reduce. Housing, everybody plays a part in the security strategy. It's not just the security agencies. In fact, like Mr. Ejiofor said, the security agencies are at best a reactive force when the incident has happened. But how do we prevent those incidences from happening? I like what Mr. Ekomu said, my friend Ona, about risk-based and threat-based thinking. Because what we're saying is that with risk-based, you are thinking ahead. What are the problems? How do we plan to mitigate those problems? What resources do we need to deploy? What policies do we need to put in place? All this kind of thinking is what will determine how much commitment government has to make in its budget or whatever it is they do, long-term, mid-term, to provide what the police and other security agencies need to counter the seeming threat. I don't see that happening. Okay. I don't see anybody thinking ahead.
Just one moment.
It's very boring because...
Just one moment, Mr. Babogunje. I have so much that I would like you to unpack in a few things that you said both earlier and just now, but we'll expatiate that a little more when we return right now. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. Mr. Babogunje, it will seem like the threats are not abating. I mean, the issues we have on our hands, we are still contending with. And then there are also other threats. I mean, from what the Minister of Police Affairs just said, threats coming from Libya that will come to Nigeria unless, without the mitigating force in Chad. But before we go to that one, there are some things that you said earlier, and that's the fact that our focus, the security apparatus we have, our security strategy now is to protect the state as opposed to protecting the people. Clearly, one would think that perhaps that hasn't really worked for us over the years, or has it?
Well, let me be clear. Both are important. It is necessary to protect the state, and it's also necessary to protect the people. Because we don't want, the threat from Chad now, we should have anticipated it long ago. When Libya fell, right? When all the rebels were coming in to attack Chad, it shouldn't have caught us, it shouldn't have taken us by surprise. If our intelligence gathering, external intelligence agencies were doing their work, we should have been prepared for this. There's a lot of instability and failed state syndrome around Nigeria today. Even Niger Republic, they had a coup there, an unsuccessful coup there not too long ago. In neighboring Cameroon, there's a civil war going on there. All these things, they are our neighbors, they are at our doorsteps. In the Gulf of Guinea, there's a problem. The piracy there is increasing. It's not news. By now, we should have a risk-based approach to these things. What if? We should create what-if scenarios. This is going to, if this happens, what would be our response to it? What capabilities do we need to put in place to protect us against these emerging threats? It's not when the threats become real that we start reacting. That's a reactive response. So a lot has to be done in seen ahead by any government, not 5 years, 10 years. Scenarios need to be created. What do we do if this happens? What is the likelihood that this will happen? what do we need to have in place that if this happens, we can mitigate it? Because nobody can guarantee, that the security situation will remain stable. West Africa region right now is under a lot of threat. Now, when you now juxtapose that with our own internal security issues, it paints a very, very worrying picture. It paints a really worrying picture because our internal capacity to even respond to our own internal threats. I mean, when I use the issues of numbers, we have to look at the numbers in this country. We have a population of 200 million. We have a land mass of almost 1 million square kilometers. What is the, if you do a footprint of the security agencies on this country, you will see that we are grossly and inadequately policed. We are grossly and inadequately secured. We have a lot of ungoverned spaces all over the country. And as the economy continues to nosedive, we are going to create a situation where more and more criminals occupy these ungoverned spaces. And there will not be enough resources, enough foot on the ground to handle the security challenges of this country. And now we have the external one too. I am concerned and I am worried.
Well, Dr. Homo, I'm almost certain you are as concerned, if not more so, with all of the internal and external threats that we are faced with right now. So if you would make recommendations, and I know, of course, you've done this for so many years, but, the facts, the figures, they are right in our faces. If you would recommend urgent steps that will help us mitigate worse scenarios, what would it be? I mean, right now, as you started out by pointing us to, and Mr. Mabogunje has expatiated on, there are risks all around. There are not threats yet, if I'm to go by what the way you put it earlier. There are risks all around from external angles, and we all know, how easily or not it is to come into the country. And there are those internal threats that are still right there in our faces in various parts of the country. Talking about immediate steps and what we can call preemptive steps, what would you recommend?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for your kind question. Well, I think we have issues that recommendation. I think number one is enrollment of every citizen of Nigeria in the security program. Somebody mentioned the NSSD document, just a National Security Strategies document, and he said that document is going to be people-based rather than state-based. Yes, you're right. It could be people-based, but they didn't enroll us. They didn't tell us about it, So you have to, it's not just an elite document. I think Director Jafar said it's grammar. It's not just an elite document. It should be a document that is put in the public domain that NOA will take over and own and popularize to the citizenry, and then make all kinds of jingles here. So, but what is it? Let's put a security context to it. We should have Nigerians focus on getting us TAPIs. TAPIs are terrorist attack pre-incident indicators. This is from Director Jafar's angle, intelligence item. Now, because he started talking about the intelligence gathering structure, collection, and directing, and other things that we do in intelligence work. Now, but the most important thing there is the pre-incident, because you are saying what are the things that will tell us that something is about to go wrong. Using a people-based structure, using a people-based security structure, you need to go to TAPIs. So you have to let people know what are those things that will indicate that there is a terrorist attack or some kind of maybe an ungoverned space being taken over by criminals. Because if that is brought out earlier and is combated, then that, of course, will help us reduce this incident. Because like Shehu said just now, he said, look, the economy is nosediving. So this problem is going to exacerbate. It's going to get worse. So what do we need to do? We need to create a level environment. Development cannot take place without security. So you must arrest insecurity so that Nigerians will now unleash their productive capacity. I was glad this week to hear that Apple bought an app from a Nigerian for $1 billion. That's the kind of energy I want to see in this country, not a separatist, terrorist, insurgent agenda that is taking over the airwaves in this country. And I think the media should also try not to give too much oxygen to all these bad guys, because if the media keeps making it appear as if they are sexy, that's how ISIS and ISWAP and Boko Haram grew, because they were made to look sexy to young people who bought their rap and then joined them in creating havoc.
Well, thank you for that one. Well, Mr. Jaffor, what would be your take? One of the things that we have heard over and over again, even from the intelligence community, is that unemployment is a major catalyst for insecurity. From the intelligence angle, what would be your recommendation as to how government should facilitate employment in a way that it can help mitigate some of these risks as far as insecurity is concerned?
I agree, but not completely, that unemployment is one of the causes of our security challenges. The major causes actually is political, ethnic and religious issues. More than 70% of our problems are politically generated. So what I would recommend is that in addition to what Dr. Honor said, that people should own the security, not leaving it to security agencies. We should all get involved. Our politicians too should guard the utterances. The utterances that are capable of inflaming passion. We are heading towards 2023. We have a lot of security challenges facing us. We have not even handled them. And come and add political dimension to it, it's going to be worse. So our appeal to our politicians to be cautious. Most importantly, they should be cautious. In addition to government providing employment and social services to the people, like Shehu said, the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Yeah, to some extent, but there are some people who are not even ready to work. Even if you provide that employment, they are not ready to work. Some people are just criminals by nature. There's nothing you do, they'll get involved in it. But in conclusion, I think our politicians should be very cautious on their utterances, which is generating and hitting up the polity.
Staying on the politicians' angle, quite a few times, governors in different parts of the country, from the north, from the southwest, from the southeast, have come out to say over and over again that politicians are sometimes responsible for some of these insecurity issues that arise. Perhaps, I want to guess that their position has come as a result of intelligence information that is given to them perhaps from the DSS and other security reports that they get on a regular basis. I'm wondering what you think we should be doing to deal with that in line with what you have just said about the politicians guarding their utterances, because I think the governor of Zamfara has mentioned specifically and said, look, we know some politicians that are behind this thing. Even the president at some point said, look, we are hoping to be able to convert some of the politicians that are making some of these incendiary comments or fueling some of these, unrests and insecurities across the country. What should we be doing? Shouldn't they be already rounded up?
The governors making the statement, are they not politicians? They are politicians. They are also making political statements. Some of them make statements without even backing up their claims. So the point I'm making is that politics is about service to the people. You don't have to kill the people for you to ascend to power. So when they make such statements, you know, without substantiating it, it becomes a problem. And people will take on them to say, please, come and elaborate on what you have said. And then you see at the end of it, it's not the issue of intelligence, like you said. If you offer intelligence, is there the political will to execute the intelligence provided? Some of them for political reasons. That's why I say it's politically generated. We decide not to even implement the intelligence we offer to them for their personal reasons. So we should think about Nigeria first before thinking of self.
Mr. Mabukunje, what's your take on that? I mean, I'm at a loss, because if politicians, governors who are politicians and in government, make comments along the line of the fact that they have been able to identify certain elements who are politicians fueling some of this security, some of these unrests, some of the insecurity issues that we've been having from time to time. What should be done?
Well, you know, if truth should be told, there's a problem with the political class. Their focus is about capturing power, state capture, and they will do anything to get into power. Not necessarily because they want to serve the people, or because being in power gives them access to the treasury, makes them relevant, and all sorts of things. So they play a lot of games, all towards capturing power. A lot of the miscreants we have in societies today were recruited by the politicians. We know this. They were, it started, I think the first instance was in the River State, where they brought in militants, armed them, all towards taking over power. And after the election, after they were in power, what happens to them? These are trained hoodlums with guns and whatever. They are unleashed onto the masses. Same thing happened in Borno State. You know, so all over the place, the politicians fuel the crisis. And once they get into power, they just focus on the spoils of the office, so to speak. So I think that's the situation we are in today, that the politicians are part of the problem because of their attitude to power, not service. Because if they were looking out for service, we would see the sincerity of purpose, not just words that we hear and listen to every time. There is nothing to show that the words that our politicians say on television, in the papers, are ever backed by action. So I find it very difficult to believe that the politicians are out to salvage the country. I don't see enough seriousness. I don't see enough sincerity. I don't see enough leadership coming from them. And that's the truth from my perspective.
All right, Dr. Ahomo, you've heard this as well before, still talking about staying with the political class. And how significant would you say that the political class is? Because politicians mention politicians as being culpable in the insecurity that we have. So how significant do you think the involvement of politics or politicians is in the fight against insecurity? And what should we be doing, not just saying, to combat that end?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayo, for that intelligent question. I think this shows that there's a problem with our law enforcement agencies, with the security agencies, if I may. Now, anybody that goes out there and makes a statement, and that statement is in the public sphere, that that statement should be documented, it should be gripped, recorded, whatever. Now, there should be a security executive somewhere, a commissioner of police, a military commander, if the statement has to do with military or has to do with something that is in the sphere of the military, or intelligence official, if a statement has to do with intelligence assets or intelligence information. that there should be somebody there. If a statement is outlandish, is very broad and is very grave, is severe, somebody should go and invite that executive. This is and invite that executive and say, well, can you please substantiate this? It's because there is no consequence for being reckless in Nigeria. That is why this is going on. Now, Sheldon spoke about what happened in Rivers State and what happened in Borno State, how politicians in those states built up armies that they used for election and abandoned them, and those armies have become part of the security threats that we have in Nigeria. One that I've documented in my book is the one on Boko Haram in the Northeast, where some politicians use them to win office, and after winning office, they turn their back on them, and a blood feud, emerged, and which has given us this crisis that we had now for 11, perhaps going on to 12 years. In July this year, to be 12 years. So what I'm saying is, these people are still alive and they are here. Who is calling them to question that, hey, we have record, we have evidence that you recruited, let's say, Mohammed Yusuf to campaign for you and do this, and you sponsored specific acts of violence, even just one. It doesn't have to be many. You know, that's the thing about Nigeria. We are overwhelmed by evidence. Just only one act of violence or one act of, what is it called, defalcation is all that you need. And if you have enough evidence, that person can be brought on trial. Now, Ayo, let me just tell you something here. If we don't try the first politician or the first individual on these kinds of issues and perhaps jail him or shame him or whatever, it's going to continue because it's benefiting them. They can do it, get away with it, and gain power, and like Shehu said, enjoy the perks of office. So which one be their own? So what I'm saying is, we must make an example of somebody so that this will come down.
Well, gentlemen, again, it's an ongoing conversation. I wish I could say that, well, this conversation has come to an end, but for now, we have to thank you very much. Some significant issues have been raised, and most certainly the angle of law enforcement, angle of the states, angle of the policy, security policy, and so many other issues. I have to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. Mike Ejiofor is a former DSS official. He joined us from our Abuja studio, while Oluseun Magbogunje, a security engineer, and Ona Ehomo, a security consultant, both joined us virtually. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your service to the country. We're back in a moment. Do stay with us.